Paris, romance, cheese, or should I say fromage, and reverse bucket lists. What's not to love about this movie? As you can see, I have so much to talk about this week, so let's dive right in and get to it. Hi, I'm Stephanie, and welcome to the Magical Movie Club, where, like you, I love to watch and chat about Hallmark movies. On June 8th, we watched Savoring Paris, starring Bethany Joy Lenz and Stanley Weber. Bethany Joy Lenz has made a lot of Hallmark movies that I haven't actually seen yet, but I'll bet her most popular one now is A Biltmore Christmas, a fabulous movie. Stanley Weber is a new name for me, but I can see he's done a lot of work in Europe, and he's been on some other cable and streaming networks like AMC, Apple TV, HBO. I'm intrigued that Hallmark is finding regional talent this month to star in their international Passport to Love movies. The movie opens with a somewhat sharp transition from these happy, carefree scenes of Ella, played by Bethany Joy Lenz, vacationing in Paris, to her wiping away tears in a New York City conference room. It turns out those tears were because she was turned down for a promotion where she works at Bistro Bon Vivant. She is, however, credited for coming up with their newest menu item, a croque monsieur with Comté cheese. I hope I'm saying these right.
Ella's brainchild, and it is fantastic.
When one of her coworkers came up to her to give her a little pep talk after the meeting, Ella told her the story of how Comté cheese changed her life back when she was in her 20s.
I saved all the money I made and just blew it on 2 weeks in Paris. Oh.
Which also explains the opening of these carefree scenes of her in Paris. Those were all photos of that wonderful vacation that she tells about here. Meanwhile, her mother is texting her. You know, the movie's actually full of a lot of pop-up text messages on the screen. It also helps us with the translations later on. This particular text is about a condo that her real estate agent mother wants Ella to buy.
Your mom found you another condo.
She meets her mom over lunch to see the condo, and we quickly learn that she and her mother have vastly different perspectives on life.
You buy a home for future you.
Her mother clearly wants Ella to be secure. Back at the office, the meeting continues and they all get to try Ella's new sandwich. Only when she opens it up, it's not quite what she expected to see.
Not what you hoped for?
It's a little different from what I pitched.
She's actually rather disgusted by it, and yet everyone in the meeting room is savoring every bite. After she has a moment of a panic attack, her coworker suggests she needs a vacation.
I do need a vacation.
So, guess where she's off to for the next 2 weeks?
Paris!
Only this time things don't start out quite as wonderfully as she remembers. We see here that she's wandering around trying to find her bearings, bumping into people, but then she finds La Fromagerie. What could be better, aside from the fact that it's not open yet? Well, she parks it right outside the window, still rolling her suitcase around, and she waits. That alone seems to bother the owner, so he gets up from the middle of eating his lunch, and that's where she meets whom I like to call Mr. Fromage.
Bonjour.
Because as it turns out, he's rather grumpy. Not to mention a tad insulting toward Americans, if I do say so.
Apologies, but I don't sell cheese in a can.
It's something he's almost proud of in his own way. And he refuses to even tell her his name.
Not ready to share the personal details of your name?
Pardon?
Nothing.
Once she has her cheese, though, she heads straight for the beach, just like she did before, and she sits down to enjoy every bite of it. It's also here where she first meets the handsome and flirtatious Gaston.
French men have an unlimited capacity for gallantry.
Next, she arrives at the apartment, or flat, which she'll be subletting for the next couple of weeks, and she meets the wonderful Clotilde.
Bonjour!
Bonjour!
They become friends almost immediately. Later, Ella goes back out for a walk to explore the city, and she makes several stops to enjoy some local foods. And of course, that includes another trip back to La Fromagerie. She casually opens up a bit and shares why she came to Paris, and I think her famous line from the previews,
I came to Paris for the experience that I have while eating cheese.
So when he offers her a mimolette and comments that if any cheese will change her life, this one will, she asks him if he knows that from personal experience, and once again, he avoids the question. Actually, on her way out, she comments about all the ways she enjoys cheddar, which he had previously mocked. And when she prompts him to reveal his name, he continues to remain a mystery, hence the name Mr. Fromage.
Yeah, you really should rethink your cheddar shade, Monsieur Fromage.
While she's back exploring the city, she struggles with the fact that her emails and text messages are piling up, both from work and her mother.
From one American to another. Turn off.
And she dreads the realization that she can't escape her life in only 2 weeks in Paris. Clotilde reminds her that her tourist visa allows her to stay for 3 months, and she convinces her to quit her job and do just that. And boy, does her mother object.
How are you affording this midlife crisis?
But nonetheless, she celebrates by returning to La Fromage and declaring that she's going to try one of every cheese in his shop before she leaves.
I've got 89 days, 365 cheeses.
And I love seeing how he doesn't willingly show it, but he's quite amused by her. And you just know from this smile that he's happy that she's staying and will be coming in more frequently. Clotilde decides to throw a party to show off her new American roommate, and it's here where she sees Gaston again.
You?
Toi.
It turns out he's Clotilde's cousin. Unfortunately, though, as much as she tries to mingle and meet with her friends, you can just tell she never feels very comfortable. It's here during this period of uncertainty and trying to find herself that she agrees to go out with Gaston.
Do you want to live your life by shoulds or by wants?
Of course, we're not to forget about Mr. Fromage either. The next day, when she's out trying some more delicious French crepes, he sees her making a mess of it and he smiles and takes the opportunity to go over and offer her a napkin.
Oh, this is embarrassing.
Actually, it's quite entertaining for me.
As they're walking away, she tries asking him a few more questions, but finds he just won't budge.
You're a tough nut to crack.
Then don't try to crack me.
But she does get him to finally reveal that his name is Serge.
Let's stop about the Monsieur Fromage.
I don't know, he'll always be Mr. Fromage to me. It's also at that very moment that she notices the Help Wanted sign in his store window. She proposes that as a tourist she could intern and he could pay her with the 5 cheeses a day. It's a win-win. He acts like it takes her a little bit to encourage him, but you know he loved the idea right from the start.
We'll do a trial period.
He's just being a handsome grump, as Clotilde calls him.
Best cheese, worst attitude.
Now, we're not to forget about Gaston yet either. Ella has her date with him, and still looks as uncomfortable as she did at that party. Of course, it turns out that Gaston is a food critic, and not only that, he's still a flirt with all the ladies. And yes, he's also still quite a charmer with Ella.
It's never work when I'm with you.
The next day was Ella's first day on the new job at La Fromagerie. And as you can see, she's in a terrific mood, feeling much more optimistic.
Happy first day at work to me.
She even shows it in her appearance, like her dress and how she carries herself. She still hasn't cracked Mr. Fromage yet, but she doesn't let that bother her one bit. She's excited to learn more about cheese.
We start each day by caring for the cheese.
I have to say, I thought they showed us just the right amount of history or lessons in cheese making. Unlike last week, where the entire movie was one great big history lesson or PSA on bees, this one focused on the people and the relationships and balanced it all out with just the right amount of education. And most importantly, I suppose, it kept me watching and wanting to see more. I couldn't wait to get back after the commercial breaks, and that wasn't entirely the case last week. On a side note, if you're looking for an inexpensive way to watch Hallmark Channel movies, I'd like to take just a moment to let you know about Friendly TV. I've been a subscriber for years, and I feel very fortunate now to have an affiliate relationship with them. What I like about Friendly TV is, first of all, they're the most affordable live TV streaming service I know, and that includes unlimited DVR and a 72-hour look back with the Classic plan. That means that if I accidentally forget to record a movie, and that does happen from time to time, I still have 72 hours to go back and watch it and still save it as a recording. Both of those features are awesome, and this is how I watch Hallmark movie premieres every week on Saturday nights. So if you're in the US or Canada, use the link in the description below to check out Friendly TV and all they have to offer. There's no additional cost to you for clicking this link, but this is how they know that I sent you there, and it's how I know that you were sent to them through one of my YouTube videos. So thank you for checking them out. And now, let's get back to the movie review. Time fast forwards a bit, and we see her truly enjoying herself and interacting with people. She's finally fitting in, shall we say, and continuing to go out with Gaston. Something which Clotilde notices and even laughs at the suggestion that things may be getting serious with him.
Désolé, but sorry, it never gets serious with Gaston.
Just then, Ella receives a text from Serge, aka Mr. Fromage, inviting her to a picnic.
You're becoming more French every day.
The picnic was so romantic. She and Serge were discussing her attitude toward eating 5 different kinds of cheese a day and how her perspective is changing.
But then if you're only gonna eat one a day, it must be the mimolette.
Serge hands her a mimolette and finally opens up about how it changed his life from that of a big city lawyer to becoming a cheesemaker. What's funny was at the end of their picnic, Ella tells him that she has a date with Gaston. She's surprised by his reaction that he knows him, and he says,
Everybody knows Gaston, he's a cad.
The problem with her date with Gaston is she's still not quite fitting in with his crowd, or with him for that matter. She gave him a taste of her new favorite mimolette cheese to try, and even as a food critic, he wrinkles his nose and says,
Not exactly my flavor profile.
It's my humble opinion that she's quite obviously happier and more comfortable around Serge, but she's still convinced that she wants to be with Gaston, probably because he's far more popular. Unfortunately, she finds herself in a difficult situation when she misunderstands his next words.
Je t'aime bien, Ella.
He tells her how important she is to him and how much he likes her, but she thinks he's telling her he loves her. Oops. Now she's convinced that he must be the one, even though she's admittedly not in love with him. She still ponders the possibility that maybe someday she will. So we were about an hour into the movie by now, and that's when her level-headed mother decided it was time to pay her daughter a visit in Paris.
You've barely known this man 6 weeks. Now, illogic has its limits.
The next day started out as a typical day for her. She was strolling to work and stopped to pick up some flowers along the way when she noticed the space next door to the cheese shop now has a sign up that it's for lease.
It used to be a popular bistro back in the day, but the owner's just retired.
Ella thinks Serge should consider opening up a place of his own.
I think you should open up a wine and cheese bar and host tastings and events.
She actually has lots of wonderful ideas. We get to see how much she's learning at the shop and honestly how much Serge is enjoying teaching her when suddenly Gaston shows up. Clearly, they do not like each other.
Gaston, the cad?
Serge, the grump.
I honestly thought there would be a backstory about the two of them, like maybe there was someone else from their past that they both cared for, but no, that did not appear to be the case. Of course, it didn't help for Serge to see him with Ella talking together outside the shop either.
I'll text you later.
But that doesn't stop his plans to teach her how to make camembert cheese.
We're making cheese. Actually, we're making camembert.
Or to show her the empty space next door. It appears the landlord had asked him to watch the space, so he has the keys.
Partner with local wineries and host events, and you could do cheese-making activities.
Ella had many wonderful ideas on what he could do with that space.
Yeah, I think I would too.
It was so fun to see them both dreaming a bit and sharing ideas together. For example, Serge told her about his reverse bucket list.
I cross off everything I don't absolutely need to do until all I have left is what I can't live without doing.
Keep in mind, while she was developing a deeper connection with Serge, Mr. Fromage, she was still dating Gaston. But was she even aware of it? I mean, she was cooking dinner for Gaston one night, but taking pictures of what she was making and sending them to Serge. Isn't that odd that she's preparing dinner for one man while thinking of another? Before dinner, she may not realize she was doing that, but by the end, it was more obvious that she was coming to the realization that she and Gaston weren't going to last.
This is who I am, Ella.
And then there's her mother. She's happy that her daughter's been enjoying herself in Paris, but she's not supportive of the idea of her possibly staying.
You're on vacation living a fantasy.
Ella hasn't necessarily decided to stay, but with the wine and cheese bistro they're opening, she's certainly considering it. And while she and her mother debate the topic, they both get a little heated, and Ella says something that unintentionally hurts her.
There's nothing for me at home.
In this next scene, Serge cooks dinner for Ella and finally opens up about his feelings for her. But they hit a snag when she tells him she hasn't had a chance to break up with Gaston yet. But the next day she sees Gaston holding hands with Adele, the pretty but empty-minded girl who introduces herself to Ella for the first time every time they meet throughout the movie.
I'm Adele.
I know. We've met 3 times.
Love the subtle humor. This also leads to the breakup and realization that Ella misunderstood him before when she thought he said he loved her. They actually parted as friends, which was good. What was not good was Serge putting the walls back up where Ella is concerned again.
Who would I be with when you don't know who you are?
After he told her he could not be with her when she doesn't even know who she is, she confesses to her mother that she's decided to go home after all.
But I'm coming home.
She came so close to it too. Her mother picked her up at the apartment to head to the airport together, but kind of like Rachel on Friends, she never actually got on the plane. Not that particular flight anyway. I'll leave the details for you to see how it unfolded, but let me just tell you, I never in my life thought I could get choked up over a wheel of cheese. Yes, I was very much invested in this story. You know, as I was reflecting on this movie, I thought of Sabrina. I happen to like both versions, the original with Audrey Hepburn and Humphrey Bogart, as well as the 1995 version. It has Julia Ormond, Harrison Ford, and Greg Kinnear. It's not exactly the same story per se, but Ella is similar to Sabrina in that she thought she would be happy with the charming, popular guy, you know, the one all the ladies want to date, but by the end, she realized she had developed a much deeper connection and had in fact fallen in love with the older, more reserved man in her life. My husband was quick to point out that that kind of sounds like the story of my life. What can I say? Something I've come to realize about myself since I started reviewing Hallmark movies and sort of picking apart the characters a little bit is I like nice people. I know that may sound simplistic, but it's absolutely true in real life as well as in movies. Stick with me here, there is actually a point to this. I love seeing positive, meaningful character development in a story. They can start out as selfish, arrogant, shallow, or maybe even just lost in trying to find their sense of purpose. Well, this movie had perhaps a little bit of all of the above. Ella was lost and looking for a sense of purpose. Serge was content but guarded. He needed a sense of purpose but was either afraid to admit it to himself or open himself up to finding it, so he came across as arrogant. The two of them coming together was so special. They found their sense of purpose and realized their lives were much fuller, more enriched together than they were separate. I was just as impressed by how Ella touched other lives as well, including her mother and Clotilde, her new best friend who found her own purpose by the end of the movie.
No one can throw a party like I can, so I've got the jobs.
Yeah.
Really? I'm so happy.
And yes, even Gaston, the cad. Add to all of this a touch of humor and some Parisian culture, and this movie is fantastic. I'm usually a bit apprehensive about giving a top rating of 5 out of 5, but this one earned it. I got choked up at the end and felt so wonderful for having seen it. I will definitely watch this again and again. Thank you, Hallmark, for knocking this one out of the park. So now I'm opening myself up a little bit and asking you what you thought of this one. Perhaps you loved it too, or maybe it just didn't resonate the same way with you. Either way, I always enjoy reading your thoughts about these movies. Well, I think that wraps up my review of Savoring Paris. Next week, we'll be watching the third premiere for June in the Passport to Love series called A Greek Recipe for Romance, starring Danielle C. Ryan. And after that, we'll be watching 2 Scoops of Italy with Hunter King. As always, thank you so much for being a part of the Magical Movie Club. If you like this too and want to see more, please let me know by hitting the like button and subscribe to the channel. Also, consider following us on Instagram at Magical Movie Club and on Twitter at Magical Movie Club with no U in club. You can find those links below in the description, as well as links to the preview and the movie page for Savoring Paris at Hallmark.com. I'll be back next week to chat more about our favorite magical movies.